So we just got the reveal of the strongest monsters in One Punch Man that we've seen so far. Like, these monsters are straight up labeled dragon level or higher. So not exactly god level, but still. They take center stage in the latest revised chapter of One Punch Man, chapter 202, called Divine Beasts. These monsters actually appeared at the end of the previous chapter where they popped out of this like dimensional fissure, as they have some kind of like crazy energy beam battle with Overgrown Rover. Now we find out at the very beginning of this chapter that Overgrown Rover definitely lost his battle, but thankfully to Blast's crazy dimensional powers, he was able to save everybody from the impact. And this is also where he points out at the very beginning of this chapter that they are called Divine Beasts. More specifically, God's Guardian Beasts. Now the really interesting thing here is when we get their like introductory boxes, because we actually get their names and also their threat level. The turtle looking one is called Divine Beast Genbu, and the massive tiger Divine Beast is called Byakko. Now again, both of them are classified as disaster level dragon or higher, or at least in these translations. Now comparing them to other monsters we've seen in the past and their labels they've gotten in the series, now the only ultra powerful monsters you can really compare them to in terms of threat level would probably be Sage Centipede or Evil Natural Ocean, but those monsters got classified as unknown. I would argue that they'd be classified as probably this, dragon or higher. But seeing as how these are straight up God's pets, like his divine guardians, it's safe to say that they're likely more powerful than them as well. Now I also think there's something very exciting with the reveal of these divine beasts that I want to talk about in a second, and I'm sure if you're heavily invested in the One Punch Man community, you've already seen the connection between these beasts and actual divine beasts from Chinese mythology, meaning that there's two more of these on the way likely at some point in the story. But I think there might be even more to that might make for some super exciting final battles at the end of the series, and I think it would excite a lot of fans, but I'm going to touch on that in a second. First, as we continue with the chapter, after we have this giant beam clash and Blast saves everyone, Saitama immediately springs into action and is about to deliver a massive blow on these monsters, likely probably killing them in the process. And of course he has his own like Saitama version of a heroic phrase before he delivers the punch. He says, "Don't go barking at my pet." And of course he's referring to Overgrown Rover, who he's holding in his other arm as he's about to deliver this punch. But just before he does this though, everyone notices some smoke coming out of the imprint that Empty Void left in the ground, that like body shaped crater that was left after Saitama punched him. And Blast notices this in particular and says, "That's smoke," thinking back to when Garo was releasing his like cosmic power through his crack in his mask after getting the zero punch from Saitama. So if you guys remember in like the second version of this redraw, we found out that Empty Void was actually present when all of Garo's power was seeping through his shell or mask or whatever you want to call it, and he ended up actually absorbing all of it. Now it seems that little storyline is going to come into play in this version of the ninja arc. I don't know if they're just going to one-for-one replay the events of the second version, but it seems it's going to play some kind of a role at least. But that's not the important thing right now. The thing that has a lot of people excited is that from this smoke in the ground comes Empty Void straight up shooting into the sky towards these monsters. Then we get the return of the dimensional slash, because we get this awesome double spread panel, or a double page spread I mean, of Empty Void straight up like going through these monsters and delivering some insane slashes on them as well. Now as we're gonna see in the next couple pages of this chapter, like these monsters aren't actually dead, or at least I don't think they're dead, but here it seems like he straight up like went through them and cubed them up. This might actually be the dimensional slash at play, where Empty Void can like straight up like phase through somebody or deliver cuts to them on a molecular level or something like that. Something similar to what Atomic Samurai can do, but like even better. But that's not all, because Blast then comes in with a brand new move that we haven't seen before called the Giga Gravity Blow, which essentially looks like a massive barrage of gravity punches. Both of these double spreads look pretty awesome, and of course it's great to see Murata in peak form here. Sure, it took many redraws to get here, but you know what? We're here, and you know, we can at least enjoy the artwork that we're getting now, right? So these monsters get heavily damaged, and Blast sends them back through this like dimensional fissure that they came out of. Now before we finish the chapter, I do want to talk about how these monsters are going to come back into play later, because again, it doesn't seem like they got killed, and we also are likely going to see two more of God's guardian beasts, because again, as you probably have already seen, these beasts are actually based in real world Chinese mythology. And just so I can explain in a little bit more detail what I'm talking about here, we're going to refer to our good friend Wikipedia. These mythological figures are known as the four symbols, which are creatures appearing among Chinese constellations beings and viewed as the guardians of the 4 cardinal directions. These 4 creatures are also referred to by a variety of other names, including 4 guardians, 4 gods, and 4 auspicious beasts. They are the azure dragon of the east, the vermilion bird of the south, the white tiger of the west, which we saw in this chapter, and the black tortoise of the north, which we also saw in this chapter. And then some other stuff that we're not really worried about right now. So if One and Murata want to stick closely to the real mythology of these figures, then we're likely going to see a dragon and a vermilion bird at some point. And I think this is important to note because I feel like if these beasts were introduced now, and for you webcomic readers that know how this story is going to go beyond this Ninja Village arc, you can probably surmise that these beasts aren't going to really play a role in that arc because they don't really have a place in it, like once we get heavier into the Neo Hero stuff. So my guess is that these beasts are going to come back up during like the final arc of the series, like the God arc. So in my opinion, I think that these beasts are going to play a major role as like God's cadre or a part of God's cadre, like we saw the cadre from the Monster Association arc. We always kind of have like this big bad and then his like underlings that the lesser heroes or, you know, like the S-Class and like not Saitama tend to fight. But I also thought it'd be kind of weird that like the S-Class heroes or like the main heroes of the story are gonna fight these like massive monsters. I always thought the final battles of the series were gonna be like the S-Class heroes versus like these like super powerful god warriors or something. More like, you know, one-on-one close combat battles. But then I came across something interesting that I think is gonna allude to what's actually going to happen with these beasts at the end of the series. And how we're gonna get those cool, more like personal one-on-one battles between S-Class heroes, or at least some of the strongest ones against these 4 guardian beasts. Because if we refer back to our friend Wikipedia, apparently in one cultural depiction of these 4 guardian beasts, particularly in the work of the Romance of the Tales of the Tang, the White Tiger Star is reincarnated as fictionalized General Lao Cheng. The Azure Dragon Star is reincarnated as General Sheng Xiongxing. I hope I pronounced that right. But essentially the whole point here is that these beasts like reincarnate as actual humans in history, or at least history within the story. So that kind of gave me the idea that these guardian beasts are gonna maybe get like killed by Saitama, and their essence is gonna be absorbed by some other beings, and like their essence is gonna be absorbed by some other beings or something. Or maybe God is gonna transfer their like essence or power into 4 humans that are relevant in the story, or transfer their power and essence into avatars like God likes to do himself. I think it would be pretty cool if they were absorbed by like 4 monsters or 4 humans, 4 beings that are more like humanoid and, you know, human sized, so that we can get those awesome one-on-one battles and God can have his form of his own cadre, like almost like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse type deal. So that way members from Team Saitama like King or Genos or Tatsumaki or Fubuki can have their own final battles against super strong beings as Saitama takes God on himself. Of course, this is just a theory that I cooked up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would you love this idea or hate this idea? Or can you think of something better? Let me know. But moving on, at the very end of this chapter, we see that empty void's like monster shell or monster helmet ends up cracking, and his regular human self pops up out of it. Blast is of course super happy to see Void in his human form because that was like his former best friend apparently, and that's where the chapter ends. Let me know what you thought about this chapter in the comments below, but that's gonna do it for this one. Have an absolutely wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, whatever. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.